Allora, vi presento la professoressa Andrea BRAIDT, che è professore all'Università di Vienna e anche senior scientist nel Dipartimento di Studi Teatrali, Cinematografici e dei Media. Lei ha lasciato da non molti anni un incarico che ha tenuto a lungo come prorettore per l'arte e la ricerca presso l'Accademia di Belle Arti di Vienna. È laureata in studi cinematografici e letteratura comparata. Il suo focus di ricerca e anche le sue pubblicazioni si concentrano su temi come la narratologia, teoria e studi di genere. Ha avuto numerosissime borse di studio, ha raggiunto posizioni internazionali importanti che adesso vi riassumo, scusate. È stata presso la Central European Universities proprio per le sue competenze negli studi di genere dal 2004 al 2011, senior scientist presso il Dipartimento degli Studi Teatrali all'Università di Vienna, appunto. Ha condotto numerosi progetti di ricerca nell'ambito della ricerca basata sulle arti. Ha organizzato conferenze internazionali, è molto attiva su questo fronte. Presidente di ELIA, e ELIA è in qualche modo la società, l'alter ego per le accademie di belle arti europee e internazionali, di quello che è AEC invece per i conservatori di musica. Nel suo curriculum è pubblicato, io adesso sto attingendo queste informazioni dal sito di ELIA proprio, lei sottolinea anche proprio l'impegno nella redazione e nella promozione di questi due importanti position paper che andrà a presentarci, anche in generale nell'attività che questo network, questa associazione è un network di accademie, sono più di 260-270 accademie affiliate di alta formazione, devolve proprio alla ricerca artistica. In questo senso, due parole proprio sull'attività, sull'artistic research da parte di ELIA. È evidentemente una delle loro priorità strategiche. Da diversi anni loro hanno un gruppo di lavoro e anche una piattaforma che sono molto attivi, sono molto multidisciplinari, includono anche naturalmente le accademie di belle arti possono essere molto ampie dal punto di vista della ricomprensione delle discipline. Per esempio all'estero, sapete, queste istituzioni possono avere un dipartimento di performing arts o addirittura di musica e diciamo che lo sforzo per i Florence nella redazione dei Florence Principles, che sono stati presentati in una conferenza biennale di ELIA nel 2016 a Firenze, è stato proprio quello di utilizzare questo documento per dare un maggiore riconoscimento ai dottorati artistici a livello europeo e a livello nazionale. Due parole sui Florence Principles, di cui Andrea BRAIDT andrà descriverci più in particolare. Il position paper, il primo, è del 2015, Florence Principles, è formulato come punto di riferimento destinato a decision maker, a politici, a rettori universitari, direttori di istituzioni di alta formazione, a coloro che si occupano di curricula design, ma anche a agenzie per il finanziamento alla ricerca. Quindi si rivolge sia alle università, sia alle accademie e alle istituzioni di alta formazione artistica e musicale. È in qualche modo collegato alla presenza del tema della ricerca artistica all'interno del manuale I Frascati, di cui abbiamo parlato nel nostro primo seminario, con l'aiuto di Giulio Perani, e ha l'intenzione di plasmare ulteriormente la comprensione della ricerca nel campo delle arti per creare le condizioni, gli ambienti di ricerca e stimolare le risorse necessarie per avviare in maniera appropriata questa fase di lavoro e di sviluppo del nostro sistema internazionale. Infine, siccome questo documento si concentra soprattutto su criteri e principi per lo sviluppo dei dottorati di ricerca nelle arti, fa riferimento anche ai documenti importanti come le Salzburg Recommendation del 2005 e la seconda edizione del 2016 delle raccomandazioni di Salzburg, che sono il testo di riferimento per l'evoluzione dei dottorati nelle università. È importante sottolineare come già questo documento del 2015, prima Andrea BRAIDT diceva oramai il Florence Principles sono vecchi, ce ne parlerà meglio lei stessa, è che è un position paper che esce dalla collaborazione di un network di organismi, quindi c'è la Società per la ricerca artistica, la Società per la ricerca artistica, la SAR, la AEC, ci sono anche questa associazione di dipartimenti per architetti, per l'architettura, e anche c'è stata la collaborazione del componente all'interno di EUA, che è la European University Association, dedicata proprio allo sviluppo dei dottorati. Per quanto riguarda Vienna Declaration, è un altro documento, arriva nel 2020 e in realtà è collegato, ma si occupa e anche ha una destinazione diversa, è un focus sulla ricerca artistica, sulla sua dimensione, sulla sua specificità, è molto collegato al manuale di Frascati, a questo compito di migliore implementazione nel settore che ci si prospetta nel futuro, così come anche credo bene evidenziato a Giulio Perani nel suo seminario, e presenta appunto un'articolazione più chiara e migliore dei concetti e dell'impatto dell'artistic research all'interno proprio di questo documento, in modo tale che poi possa essere armonicamente applicato nei percorsi veri e propri e nello sviluppo della ricerca. Ho preso anche, credo, troppo tempo. Vi ringrazio tutti i presenti e quelli che forse si collegheranno ancora, manca qualcuno, credo. Andrea BRAIDT, thank you very much for your presence here. You take the floor.
Thank you very much for this fantastic introduction. I'm very glad this is recorded because it's not often that you hear such a wonderful introduction in a language that you barely understand, but understand enough to know that it was really kind. So thank you very much. Also for the context you gave already in your introduction. And thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be able to speak with you here today about the Florence Principles, not only because the Florence Principles obviously were presented in Florence at the ELIA biennial in 2016, but also because it's such a timely moment, as I heard, for Italy, where the law is changing in terms that a new third cycle program, or the legal framework for the third cycle education for artistic research is being introduced. So maybe discussions like these are now really important to have. So maybe let me share my screen for a second to give you a few slides from a presentation to set a context. What was the background for the considerations that went into the creation of the Florence Principles? So as Leonela already said, there was a complete turning point in doctoral education at the beginning of the 21st century, which also started with a thing that bears an Italian name, the Bologna Declaration, as you all know, when the study programs were streamlined in a way in Europe that now, or ever since then, we have, the BA, MA, and doctorate degrees. So this Bologna reform for the universities was intended to make university degrees worldwide comparable, and also to introduce us, this was the idea or the fantasy, to have kind of similar standards. And these standards or the kind of comparability was also introduced by introducing a credit system that was comparable. The ECTS points that reflect the workload, the working hours that students do in every course. So this was a real game changer for universities in Europe, because up till then, universities did very separate things from each other. And now at least there is a system, as a fantasy, I say, because reality looks different in a lot of ways, to have a comparison and also to have more mobility between the universities of Europe. Now, what seemed to happen, what seemed to work in a way for the BA/MA systems was not so easily workable for the PhD, because the PhD is not based on a study program as such, in modules and everything, but it's the first step for researchers to enter an academic career. And here in 2005, also a game-changing thing happened, as Leonela, I think, also pointed out. It's really a change of paradigm that we can talk about. Because in 2005, this kind of doctor father, doctor mother system was said to be really old-fashioned and was kind of abolished formally in order to introduce a doctoral education that was more systematic, that was more peer group based, that was thought of as a contextualization, and it was thought of as exactly this first step into a research career for the students. So from then on, doctoral students are also not called students anymore, but early stage researchers. So this is a real change for all universities, because it means we need completely different resources in doctoral education. We need completely different training systems for supervisors of doctoral projects. We have different expectations also from the doctoral researchers, but also from the supervisors. So it's really changing a lot. In order to kind of frame that change, the European University Association, in a conference in 2005 in Salzburg, developed the infamous Salzburg principles. And these principles, and I will refer to them more in detail when we talk about the Florence principles. These principles say, basically what I just explained. And it's still maybe the most important document about doctoral education in a European university system.
Pronto?
So,
ciao.
Sorry, scusate, potete chiudere tutti il microfono perché qualcuno di voi ce l'ha ancora aperto? Grazie, perché ho cercato di farlo io ma non sono riuscita. Thank you, sorry Andrea, please.
No problem. So what this whole change also did, let me just, was introducing this idea of research for every university. See, my mobile also rings. So research was now something that all universities have to do, also art universities. Now, it can't be stressed enough how far-reaching the Bologna reform in this respect really was for Europe. Because now this idea of this separation also of BA/MA programs, which are, yes, they are research-led teaching in these programs, but the students there are not researchers, right? But in the PhD, research really happens. So every university really has to define also what is the research context where the PhD students, where the early stage researchers can situate themselves. So this was, of course, really fundamental for art universities, because up until that point, research was not really a really important topic for most art universities. But now, also in order to have access to funding, art universities had to think about what is research in the context of an art university, right? Because the European Union made all their funding schemes based on the Bologna reform. So all the project fundings going to university were really on basic research, whereas the art and cultural project funding, that did not go to the universities anymore, but it went to theaters, to music halls, to production sites of art and culture, but not to education institutions. Right, so big problem. We need to define what research is within the context of art, and this is one of the main sources, I think, of this idea of artistic research we have now at this moment in Europe. You could also tell the history of artistic research a completely different way and start with Leonardo da Vinci and with artists who have always had an idea of, not a separation of making art and making research. But I think for our context, I always prefer to tell the story like I just did now. Right, so a working definition of artistic research is the work of generating knowledge by applying artistic methods to explicit research questions. So that's I'm sure you can all, or I hope we can all agree on that. I think the central point is artistic research is done with artistic methods, right? It's not philosophy about art, but it's posing questions and tackling questions using artistic methods, right? So artistic research projects then in principle follow the same logic as all other research projects. A research question is stated, methodology is described, a state of the art for the specific problem is defined. Results and interim results are presented, and they are presented to a community of artists and a community of artistic researchers, and not to a community of scientists or scientific scholars. So basically, the outcome of artistic research is art. So I mean, this is disputable, and it also divides groups of people talking about artistic research, but this is the basic tenet of the Florence principles. the outcome of artistic research is art. And to me, it's really important. This is a really, really important central point, because it also means that who is doing artistic research? You know, it's basically artists. It's people who are trained, who are equipped with artistic methods. Let me come to the doctorates in artistic research position paper done by ELIA in 2016, the so-called Florence Principles. It started off as an exercise. The working group of artistic research of ELIA, which was formed 2 years before in 2014, sat together and we said, let's look at the Salzburg principles and the Salzburg recommendations. So let's look at the position papers for scientific doctorates, and let's see if they mean something to us, if they can be adopted to artistic research, or if we have to reinvent the wheel completely. Okay, we did this exercise and hooray, we saw it's completely applicable. So what's true for scientific doctorates is also true for doctorates in artistic research. This is the next really important mission statement, if you like. We are not different. Our outcomes might be different to the scientific outcomes, but then again, also in science, the outcomes of a doctorate can differ vastly, right? The philosopher writes a book, a 400-page book. A medical doctor makes a study, with 40 pages. The chemist makes an experiment and invents a formula, or the mathematician doctoral student makes a calculation and a formula that might not take longer than 1 page. So the outcomes of doctoral studies are always really different. In our case of artistic research, the outcomes are works of art, but the process, how we get there, is really not different, or not so different, let's say, right? So that's the first statement, the validity of the Salzburg recommendations and all the other papers. In the Florence Principles, we then go on to talk about qualifications. Qualifications meaning, what do you get when you make a PhD in artistic research? It qualifies you for a number of things, but also it's really important that the candidates who are selected for the program are selected by the supervisors, or that the supervisors have a say in the selection. Then there are the career perspectives. PhD holders in artistic research may go on in a career in academia, at art school, but also, be artists. Also, we said something about the target group of PhD degrees in artistic research. It's obviously MA holders with an artistic experience after their first degree, after their first degrees at universities. Then we say something about the doctoral work. So the doctoral work, the dissertation project, we say in the paper, consists of the artistic project and of a reflective part and of documenting part, right? So there is the project, and that's the most important one. And of course, in the different disciplines, That can be anything from a singular piece of art to a composition, to a performance, to an exhibition of works. So that's the artistic part of the dissertation project. Then there is a reflective part, and this is typically in a written mode. We said in the paper it's in a discursive mode, to not say written. And then there is a documentation. So in the documentation, artistic researchers say how they reached their result. And I think this is also really important to make explicit the methods that were applied in the process. Research environment, extremely important. In order to do a PhD in artistic research, you must be situated in an environment of researchers. Either that's a doctoral school, or it's a surrounding of a department with colleagues, or whatever. But it's really important that there is a critical mass, right? I think it's really difficult to do a PhD project in whatever discipline and be on your own in one room, locked in for 4 years, and then come out and have a PhD. I don't think this works anymore. Supervision is the next really, really big topic. So when we presented the Florence Principles in Florence in 2016, it was clear that supervision would be the next big step that we wanted to deal with. So, sorry, somebody has their microphone open. So please, if you don't
chiedo a tutti di chiudere il microfono, grazie mille.
Thanks. And out of the Florence Principles came a EU-funded project, advancing supervision in the doctorates in the arts, which was led by the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. And that project came to an end just now. Maybe you've heard from that. There's also a website I can share with you, where we really looked deep into the issue of how supervision, what are the critical points in supervising artistic research projects. And lastly, dissemination. So how is the doctoral work of an artistic research project disseminated? And we said it must be disseminated adequately, meaning it must be made accessible for the community of artistic researchers. So it must be peer-reviewed, it must be distributed, it must be exhibited so other artists and artistic researchers can access it. So basically that was the, I don't find my cursor, sorry. Sorry, I cannot. Now, that was basically a short input to start the discussion about the Florence Principles. And I'm really looking forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you, Andrea, very much. You have already answered to my first question, who was related to the background, because One very important thing of of this document is that the convergence of so many network and so many. It's really a discussion that has included all the level of the higher arts and music education at European, but more international perhaps also than European. So thank you very much. Pass to the second important question, that is your recipients, because this document is a position paper. Really direct to also policy decision maker and so on. Can you perhaps explain better also the impact on this level of the document, please?
Yeah, I mean, I heard the feedback I got was always people were like, especially leadership people from art universities who were in their countries fighting for recognition of artistic research on a legal level. They were saying, oh, thank you so much, because this paper, which was, you know, backed up by, as you said, all the networks, all the network organizations in the arts, that this paper really kind of says what the doctorate in artistic research is, in a very kind of policymaker adequate language. So this is something that you can take when you go to the ministry and you put on the table, and people can flip through it. And I think people who are kind of familiar with the discussions in, you know, university education can recognize the keywords immediately. So this was really, really important to us when we made it. We didn't want to have a paper that's, you know, 20 pages and full of jargon that to us is really normal. To us, I mean, you know, art university people or people from the arts, but which makes really difficult sense for the stakeholders in the policy level. So that was really important to us. And yeah, I think from a lot of people from countries who were in similar processes as Italy at the moment, I heard that this was really effective in that way.
So thank you very much. I invite Anna Maria Bordin, who is co-chairing with me the session, please.
Thank you, Leonella. I was thinking during your speech, Andrea, in Italy, we have now a very great problem, that is scholars are scholars, artists are artists, and it is very difficult to think that the product of research work is an artistic product. There is, for example, one wording problem. If I think a word like performance, scholars are thinking about performance in a certain way that is not the same way in which artists think about performance. I'm a musician, so I feel that this problem for wording is not only in the music field, but also in a transdisciplinary way in music or cinema or theater, etc. Performance is a very different concept. So I think who are people that have to receive this very important document that is a Florence Principle or Vienna Declaration. Institution, yes, but institutions are people. And in this moment, in Italy, people are very different. And there is a very great distinction between scholars and artists. What do you think? What have we to start? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have been in many discussions about this topic, and it was always the scholars who were opposed to the idea of artistic research. And it's complete, and I think the best strategy is really to not talk about this in a philosophical or in a content way, but only in a political way. Because this distinction, as you say, or this kind of difference of understanding is really a difference in interest, right? Because the scientists don't want to give away the piece of the cake, right? I mean, it's really like that. And I think if you break it down to this discussion, then maybe it's easier to form strategic alliances. For example, one argument to me also was an argument of equality. Why should students in art universities not have the chance to continue their education, do a PhD, and receive stipends, get money for it, get get the institution for another years, the institutional support? Why should artistic students not get that? I mean, this is a case of inequality, I think. Every student of science, of a scientific discipline, can do their BA, their MA, and then if they're, talented or whatever, go on doing a PhD. But if we say artistic students are not allowed to do that for whatever reasons, because we can't imagine what this thing called artistic research is, this is inequality. And so that's the one strategy. And the other strategy is, you said the scientists, as if it was a homogeneous group. It's not, a kind of a scientist of the law does really have no idea about research in mathematics or in medical studies, because it's so different. I mean, if people would ask me if law PhD students do research, I would say I'm not sure. In my book, research is completely different to what they do. But of course, it's research. So third answer to your question, it's always the community, the peer group of the discipline who decides what makes up the discipline. This is, in the history of science, a very, very important observation. Thomas Kuhn made this in his book, The Revolution of Scientific Paradigms. This is always a great quote, I think, because scientists usually respect it. So it's never like that, from outside a discipline, somebody says, right, this is good research, this is bad research, this counts as research, this doesn't. It can only be the scientific peer group community who decides that. So this kind of fight between the scientists and the artists doesn't make sense, But of course, I know, and I have been in so many really polemical and really hard fights. It's hard also. It's really hard.
Thank you very much. Very useful reflections. Thank you.
So thank you, Anna Maria. And I also have my own reflection on this discussion. I am sure that you agree, Andrea, that also another strategy is to insist to the point that we need in science and in arts an innovative research. So artistic research could really bring food for brain on the general revision and renovation of the concept of research, the progress connected, all this type that is not only epistemologic, is also very concrete if we have time, space, fundings, resources, and expertise to work. So also your point on inequality is so clear for us in Italy, because we have a very contrast between the approach. We are also a country very rich in terms of creativity and also history, but not only history, also in contemporary creativity, and the recognition, the real recognition of our work in higher arts and music institution, and also on skills and competences and artistic knowledge of our students. So we are always fighting on this point, also because it's so well remarked in our constitution. And that is really very well remarked, much more than in other countries. So thank you for the support in this direction. And I try with another question, and then
but can I say something about that, Leonela? Because
yes.
I think it's a very important point, always to stress the high innovative potential of the arts, also
Yes.
for tackling the grand challenges, the grand questions that we face, be it the ecological questions, be it questions about migration. Arts and artistic research always have great answers and approaches for that. But to say that artistic research per se is innovative and original is also dangerous.
Yes,
because I always say, there's also bad artistic research, as there is bad mathematics, as there is bad biology research. So we also have to have the kind of self-consciousness and pride to say our discipline is so strong, we have great examples, we have potential for really giving the best answers. But as in all disciplines, there's also mediocre artistic research. And this is something that's that's tricky, but to always claim that artistic research brings innovation into science really kind of makes the scientists then say, hey, come on, we are also innovative, you have an image of science that's too reactionary, we are also great. And it's true. So I think that's it's
yes, we have to, yes, we have of course to manage all this type of elements with rigor, the necessary rigor, of course, and also to do what is needed, and not to defend other topic that is not on the floor. And this time is really a focus on potentiality of research processes in making arts. This is for me really the interesting point, and to have not only the permission but also the possibility to share with other experts of other disciplines, including science, of course, to open, to widen the space of this type of activities. That nevertheless has to be very well focused with precise goals and with awareness and etc. etc. But so my very important for me last question, and then I want to give to our participants the possibility to intervene and to ask to you something, is and now future goals, follow-up activities by you, by ELIA, by the alliances of the big network that you have contributed to build up and so on.
Yeah, I mean, the future activities are the working group of artistic research goes on and is now chaired by Jørn Mortensen from Christiania University College in Oslo. And they are really, it's an extremely productive work group. I mean, they have now focused all their strength on the Frascati manual and on changing the Frascati manual. And this, you know, if this is happening, and I think this is in the time frame is in 2 years' time, 2 or 3 years' time, this will then be the next game changer for artistic research in Europe. So this is something that's really enormously important, I think. And then, as I said, is the supervision project that now has great results and examples, and really also good resources that you can give to teachers in artistic research and in supervisors and also in PhD candidates. So there's also the resource how to become a good supervisor and how to become a better supervisor, you know. So if you check that out on the homepage, then you find great resources there.
Yes, thank you very much. If Anna Maria has something else to say, otherwise we invite the participants to make a question.
I think the better thing is to leave the stage to our participants. If there are someone that have something to ask for Andrea.
Franco
Andrea, yes.
Franco Ripadimeana, Andrea, he is professor in the Academy of Visual Arts in Rome, but he is a director in theater, and now he is in charge to follow research activities in his institution. Please,
so,
Franco.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Leonela, and thank you, Anna Maria, and thank you, Andrea, and thank you, everybody. Just maybe to bring you, to share with you a news, because we are part of the consortium that now, with ELIA, has submitted today a proposal to Creative Europe for a new festival focused on artistic research, which will be, if the proposal will be approved, will be named Now Connect. No, and so this will be another step in establishing. So we hope, we keep our fingers crossed. The proposal was submitted today and a few hours ago. So we see, as Amaroma, we are part of the consortium, and so this, I think, will be a significant step towards the circulation of artistic research. No, because in a way, from our perspective in Italy, we have there are problems that for us are quite unthinkable, because we think not to have artistic research. In reality, I think that's a perspective view, no? Because I think this is a personal idea that there is an enormous lot of very exciting artistic research in Italy, but it doesn't happen in the academia. That's all. It happens somewhere else. It's not connected with the art schools. No, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but it's not happening in the institutions. So we have a lot of exciting researchers, artistic researchers that do fantastic work, but they don't exist for the institution, no? And then we go in this consortium where we have maybe the opposite, fantastic research, which is not connected with the art market. It's not circulating. It just stays inside the academia, no? It's hard to create connection. So this is just a personal thought, no? So we always think that we are behind, but we are maybe in a different condition, no? In Italy, and so maybe this is also a strength for us, in a strange way, no? We are fighting for a PhD.
No, but it's a challenge to create this.
Please, Andrea, please.
No, it's always a challenge to create this permeability between the inside and the outside of university. I mean, one way is to create professorships of artistic research and hire artists who are outside academia and who are successful, who are doing successfully artistic research and bring them in. And then another step is to create doctoral schools of artistic research and again hire PhD, can hire artists who want to do their PhD and then really try to integrate them into the institution. But this is always a very, very difficult thing also for other doctoral, third cycle, to how do you integrate the doctoral candidates into the institution? Because doctoral candidates are mobile, they are internationally, they are away, they are not sitting in their offices and, they are not in your committees and stuff. So you really have to work hard to integrate them. That's really, really, really important, but it's the same for other disciplines also. But thank you very much for your contribution. And yes, Italy, as one has seen just now also in the Venice Biennial, the contribution by the Italian pavilion, was really also, I think, a very important work of artistic research.
Oh, do you appreciate it? Thank you. And thank you, Franco, also for the news, and good luck. It will be great if you will be successful in this. And then I give the voice to Elisa Poli, NABA. This is a very, very big private academies of visual arts in Milan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm connected with my mobile phone. So, Andrea, thank you so much. I want to thank again also Rami and the co-hoster of today's session, because I think, as you said before, this sharing aspect of ideas is a very important step toward the possibility to open up on a third cycle also in Italy. I want to ask you something about the methodology, because of course, I come from a different background, meaning that I've done my PhD in a very recognizable, I would say, more established discipline, even if I do not like discipline as a terminology anymore, but architecture history, which is quite easy, because you have to write books, etc. So coming and working since 2021, so it's not a lot, in a large academy, I've experienced something that is very different from what I lived before. For instance, the academy is quite, not only this, but in general, academies are, at least in Italy, quite teaching oriented, means that there is not a lot of space for teachers to carry on their own research. And this is a fact by now. I don't say that I like it, but I've seen it. Second, a lot of teachers grow in their artistic milieu, and their approach means even when they do very interesting work, you were mentioning the Italian pavilion, we have participated on it, and with one of our teachers, and I see that even if they have a lot of very interesting things to say, as Franco Ripagimiana said before, is quite unrelated with the possibility to communicate it in a way that is comprehensible for the audience that I think we are interested in, which is not, I want to say, in my opinion, the large audience, but is the audience that we need to assess us to the third cycle. So strategically, what I'm asking you is about the correct methodology to start as a group of entities in Italy to become more, not acceptable is incorrect, but comprehensible in the so-called scientific, but we can say in Italy, university milieu. I don't know if my question is quite large. I'm sure you have written a lot about it, and I'm also open to read a lot of things. Thank you again, because I found in Rami the right place to at least express all my concerns and ideas. I love it very much.
Thank you, Elisa. Thank you very much for this wonderful comment. I don't know. I mean, first of all, get organized in ELIA. I make a little bit of advertisement. So come to our events and, conferences and get connected internationally. I always found that personally, also for myself, that was really, really, you get so many important inputs from the from the coffee breaks, from the lunches, and so from meeting with people and sharing strategies. And the other thing is, I don't know how Italian universities are organized. In Austria, we have the University Association, where all universities have a seat in. Also the art universities. So there's no differentiation between the research universities and the artistic universities. Is this the same in Italy?
Quite the same, because really we have at the university level not this British type of distinction between research university and teaching university. Each university is also researching university, right, in Italy, exactly. And but in a different really ways, difficult to compare with other national system from this point. We have, for example, some difficulties to be recognized in the outputs and in results of a research activity because of this differentiation of the university system. Then the system of the whole, yes, higher education includes also academies and conservatoires, and I agree with the main idea of Franco and for Elisa, of everybody. I think that we have really to build the system of research, the environment, then also an appropriate doctorate to have some data also, because now is confused. We have some individuals very high level, but not the system that is organized.
No, I just wanted to ask if there is something like an association, a body where all universities are members of in Italy, because a thing like that exists in Austria. And there the Austrian art universities really kind of made propaganda for artistic research with the other universities. So that was a very, very important step in Austria, and also to make clear from the Austrian Science Fund that they have to dedicate money for projects in artistic research. So that was really a big step, opening a door in recognition, also in governmental recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for suggestion. Yes, Anna Maria, you want to answer?
Only to, yes, maybe I think the problem in Italy is that university have research tradition, but academies, arts academies and conservatoires that in this moment have to deal with artistic research that is really the kind of research they have to deal with, don't have research tradition, research history. So I think it's normal for Austrian universities, German universities deal with music and with artistic fields, and now with artistic research. So we have to collect our academies and our conservatoire to create a community and to start with this way that is a very difficult way, obviously. And Rami is beginning to do something like this. Thank you.
And Andrea, to answer perhaps, yes, we have a very strong body of representatives of universities, who is also the interlocutor, the official interlocutor with the minister and so on. And the name is CRUI. We have two, but the most important is the Association of the Rectors.
Yeah, this is what I mean, yes.
Yes. Then we have also other body, one only for conservatoire and the other one only for the academies, and they are, but they are very weak in comparison to the university. So your perspective to make a more sustainable and consistent alliance is very important. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you to everybody. If somebody wants to stay in the connection when Andrea, because she has to leave us, I believe, now. And if somebody wants to stay, we can have a discussion after the seminars, only 10 minutes if you want. And so thank you very much. You will be our guest in the next occasion, perhaps to update also you on our progress. You are interested in the topic, so I'm sure that is.
I'm very interested, and thank you so much for invitation. And if this pandemia is going away at some point, then I would love to meet you all in person in Italy or elsewhere. And good luck to all your endeavors, and thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.